Okay, we're going to go over the study guide for Unit 5. This is the honors study guide. You have similar and or congruent triangles here, so you need to determine which, if either, they are, and then tell me the reason. So the first triangle, I have the little triangle inside the big triangle, which means I'm adding the two sides, or the two pieces of each side for the big triangle, so that would be 10 over the little triangle. And I want to see if that is the same as the other side, which would be 8 over 2. Well, that equals 4. This does not equal 4. So neither would be the answer. Not enough information. NEI would be the reason. Congruent, because I'm checking to see if these are similar. They're not congruent, obviously. That's smaller and that's bigger. So you have to use congruent for that one. If they were similar, you have to use similar for that. If they were similar, you'd have to remember that Q is in both triangles, so you have that congruent angle, so you're looking for side angle side similarity. In this case, you didn't have it, but if these were the same, if these were equal, if the two ratios were equal, then you could say side angle side similarity. Over here, I don't have any information to show sides, so I'm not doing similarity for sides. I don't have two angles congruent, so I can't say angle-angle similarity. So I do know I have two sides here and two sides here, plus my vertical angles. So I could say side angle side congruency. So you just say side angle side. Number 3. Find the value of x. Well, I'm using the interior angle sum theorem, which says that the three angles add up to 180. So 2x plus 4 plus 2x minus 9 plus x equals 180. Combine like terms, I have 5x plus 4 minus 9 minus 5 equals 180. Add 5 to both sides. 5x equals 185. And for number 3, when I divide by 5, I get x equals 37. Number 4, I know is an isosceles triangle because the two sides are congruent, which means the base angles are congruent. So I take 3x plus 28 equals 5x. These are not a sum. These are not supplementary. They're congruent, which means they're equal to each other. The measures are equal. So I'm going to subtract 3x, and I get 28 equals 2x. When I divide by 2, I get x equals 14. Make sure you stop. If I know I'm going fast through these, but that doesn't mean you can't stop the video and go back and think about what I just said or listen to it again. Number 5, I have a triangle with mid-segments here. So I have mid-segment AB that goes to the base XZ and mid-segment BC that goes to the base XY. I know these are mid-segments because each of these points is a midpoint. So for number 5, I need to find the length of AB and BC. Well, AB is half of this length, which is 5, and BC is half of this length, so that's 8. Well, which one's shorter? AB. AB is shorter since 5 is less than 8. This would be your explanation. Which distance is shorter kayaking from A to B to C? So A to B to C. Well, that distance from A to B to C equals 5 plus 8, or 13 miles. Or A to X to C. Well, A to X to C, A is half of this side, so A is 8. Or AX, I'm sorry. And then XC is half of this side, which is 5. That's also 13 miles. And I wrote inches here. This should be miles. So they're the same. So they are the same distance. On to number 7. I have two parallel lines. It says in the problem that these are parallel, so I can mark them parallel. And since this is a transversal and these are parallel lines, I know these are same side interior angles, which because these are parallel lines, those are supplementary. So I'm going to say 4x plus 3x plus 5 equals 180. So 7x is going to be 175 and x equals 25. 8 is a proof. I've got PT is congruent to RS, it's marked, and PTR congruent to RSP, though that's marked. So that's what I would put for my given. PT congruent to RS and angle PTR congruent to angle RSP. Now what would go here? I'm saying PQT is congruent to RQS. Well, these are vertical angles, so I'm going to say vertical angles. And then the last statement is always your proof statement. So triangle PQT is congruent to triangle RQS by angle, angle, side, because you showed angle, 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 side. 9 is another proof. On the test, they will give you some of the statements and reasons. On here, I'm not. I want to see what you can do with it, or I wanted to. So we have our statements and our reasons. I have WZ parallel to YZ, that's shown, and these two sides are also congruent, which is shown. I need to show that these two triangles are congruent. So my givens are WX parallel to YZ and WX is congruent to YZ. And that would be given. The second statement, well, I got to think about this. I have parallel lines, so probably you're going to have alternate interior angles, and I have a shared side, so probably I'm going to use reflexive property. So I can say either these two angles are congruent or the other two alternate interior. So, oh no, I have to say these two angles are congruent. Sorry, the others are an alternate interior. So I've got WXZ is congruent to YZX by alternate interior angles are congruent. And then 3, I'll use that reflexive property, ZX congruent to ZX, and that's reflexive property. And then 4, I have to have at least 3 things to show that triangles are congruent. I have a congruent side, I have a congruent angle, and a congruent side, so I'm going to be able to say side angle side. And of course, it's always your prove statement that comes last. So WXZ is congruent to triangle YZX. Okay, that's number 9. Number 10, 11, and 12 all have to do with this circle. And that is 152 degrees, that's 75 degrees. I need to find YX. It's a minor arc because there's only 2, so I'm going this way. And YX I can find because I can see that all the way around from Y to X to W is 180 because that's a semicircle. So I'm just going to do 180 minus 75 because I don't want that piece. And that gives me 105 degrees. So for number 10, you get 105. Then I'd go to ZX. ZX. Now I want this arc. Well, I have this was 105, but I don't know this. How am I going to find this? Well, this is also a semicircle. So if I subtract 152 from 180, that'll give me this. So 180 minus 152 is 152, 28. So this is 28. So together that adds up to 133. And our last one is a major arc, Z or YZX. So I want ZX. So I want this arc. So I know I have 28 plus 152 plus 75. Or you could do 360 minus 105. It doesn't matter. And that adds up to 255. So number 12 is 255 degrees. We'll go with blue now. Number 13. This goes back to what we did on Tuesday. I have inscribed angles. To find angle A, that's going to be half of this arc because I can see that the endpoints of A intercept this arc here. So A equals 144 over 2, which is 72. B is right here. I can see those endpoints are right here. So B is half of this 48, so 48 over 2, and it's 24. So remember, the angle is half the arc. The arc is twice the angle. Okay, now C. We did a problem in class a lot like this problem. I have this triangle here, AB, or it's not labeled. So I have that triangle. I know this angle, and I know this angle. I could get this angle, and since these two angles are vertical angles, once I know this angle, it's congruent to this angle. So C is going to be, well, A plus B is 72 plus 24, 96. So 180 minus 96. So that equals 84. And then number 14, I have a quadrilateral, so I'm going to think those corollaries, opposite angles are supplementary. So I know C is supplementary with this, and D is supplementary with this. So I know I have to get A, B, C, and D, but I'm going to go ahead and get C and D first because those are pretty simple. C is going to be 180 minus 96, which is 84. And D is going to be 180 minus 100, which is 80. Now, it gets a little more complicated when I need A, because I need an arc, and B, I need this arc. But if I can look, I know this, what was I going to do? This angle intercepts this arc here. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to put this arc on there. And I want to find this measurement. Well, this arc has to be double this angle. So this whole thing is 200. So I would say 200, A is going to be 200 minus 99, which is 101. And then B, pretty much the same principle, only now I'm using a different angle. So for B, I have, well, this one is 101. How did I do B? A plus B is 168. Oh, that's right. Because I know C is 84, this whole arc has to be 168. So this plus this has to be 168. So 101 plus B equals 168. So B must equal 57. Okay, so some of these get a little tricky. Don't forget to double up your angles to get the arcs, and pretty soon the pieces start fitting together. Number 7, you have a pizza cut into 8 pieces, so your typical pizza, and the diameter of this pizza is 24, which makes the radius 12. That might help. If I have 8 pieces and the total degrees, the total measurement would be 360, and divide that by 8, I get 45 degrees for my measurement. So if I want the length of the crust, I'm using circumference, so that's pi times diameter. I do 45 over 360 times 24 pi. You want to put that in the calculator, you get 3 pi inches, which is 9.4, approximately 9.4 inches. Either one of those answers would be acceptable. Although I taught you this way, and that's because with our upcoming unit, I wanted you to get used to leaving answers in terms of pi. And then B would be 45 over 360 times pi r squared, because now I'm finding area. So I want pi times r squared, which would be 144, 12 squared. And when you put that in the calculator and do math, enter, enter, you should get 18 pi inches squared, which is approximately 56.5 inches. However, I forgot to multiply these by 5. You ate 5 slices. So 3 times 5 would be 15 pi inches. And this one would be 18 times 5. So 18 times 5, or 90 pi inches squared. Okay, so make sure you multiply that by 5 since you ate 5 slices. And then 8 and 9, actually they would be 16 and 17, but I forgot to fix the numbers. I'm sorry. These are taking the area of the square minus the area of the circle that's inscribed. Since the area of the square is side squared, the area of the squared would be 10 squared. And then the area of the circle is pi r squared. Well, r is half of this length because this is the diameter here, so r is 5. So times 5 squared is 25 pi equals 100 minus 25 pi inches squared. You can just leave it in terms of pi, even though it says round to the nearest tenth. When I taught this the other day, I told you to leave it in terms of pi. I'm okay with either one. Follow the directions. I should have changed that, and I didn't. Okay, and this one would be 14 squared minus, and the radius is half the diameter, so 7. 7 squared is 49. So that's equal to 196 minus 49 pi meters squared. And again, if you put it in your calculator with pi, that's fine. But this is the way I taught it, so that's the way I plan on leaving it. And that is the end of our study guide. So study, go back and look at the things that you didn't understand, go back and pause it until you understand them.